Just wanted to give everybody an update of the tank in the living room. Well, we have two. That's the cluttered tank. But over here now, we've got a little more room for the angels. We've got about 7 black phantom tetras in there. We've got 15 rummy nose tetras in here. And then we also have 7 of the Venezuelana corridoras. We also have some other, here's the quarries, the Venezuelan quarries. They have orange and metallic blue or black on them, depending. And then we also have Apistogramma hongsloi, which here you can see they've got some pink on their belly, and there's 2 of them. There's a male and a female. And over here, the other one is kind of lurking around. Need to scrape the glass a bit, but here you can see again, these are the Corridora. Right now, they're still considered Aeneas as the species in Latin, but Venezuelana is kind of the subspecies and or maybe the new species that they'll be given. Then we've got the black phantom tetras, female black phantom tetras, and you can't tell the difference between any of them on the rummy nose unless they got a big belly full of eggs. And over here, eating some algae off the Limnophilia aromatica, you can see that the Hongsloia, the Episto, has those beautiful pink eyes with the purple flushing. Just a really cool trait. And there's also shrimp in here as well. And there's also a few oddballs left from a different round of stocking when I moved everybody. But you can see here we've got a very pregnant Equus pencilfish. And there are a total of 5 of the pencilfish left, but they like to hide up here amongst the salvinia and the bulbitis that's growing immersed and all that. This is Anubias that has grown up and out of the tank. It's getting a little too hot for it up under the light and burning it out along the edges. It probably could use potassium also, the way we're seeing that pattern. So it's probably a little low on potassium, a little low on nitrates, nitrites. And then we've got the black angelfish, which is a female. We've got the big old gold angelfish, gold and pearl scale, which is a male. And then, as I mentioned, we've got another angelfish who's just not getting along very well. He's getting beat up, and she's getting picked on a lot, and she's a koi, and she's back over here. She doesn't have any damage to her fins or anything, but we think it's a she, and by the best guess, it's a she, and then this is the he. And then look, these Epistos are coming up and out. Now, I have no nearite snails or autosynclus or plecos or anything like that really to clean the glass at the moment. And you can see that we've got some biofilm and also a little bit of spot algae building up. And so I could either throw those in, I could use a razor blade and clean it. Probably a water change would help things in that department. And then that's really all that I'd have to do. Everything else is running on this Fluval 203. And then we've got about 55, or rather 50 gallons of water in this system altogether. And a lot of the immersed growth, which this bamboo, this purple bamboo, this bulbitis, the Anubias doesn't draw quite as much. And there's one less jelly bean tetra that's still in there from when I had it stocked with them. But in any case, yeah, so we just trimmed everything back. We've still got quite a few different hides and caves in here. And so hopefully the Epistos will go into those. They were gone for a couple days back in this corner with the with this real nice plant, which is actually, we're getting some nice little new starts of it too. So that back corner has a lot of nutrients in it kind of under where the current starts. And this is actually Barclaya longifolia, one of my favorite large aquarium plants. And we've also got a Crypt albida, and yeah, so that's what's going on in the tank right now. Need to trim some moss. Need to still do a little more trimming, getting this out of the way. This kind of ball of stuff, I was going to move to other tanks and put these starts, which were all cut from down here, into other tanks. But at this point, the angels fighting and the cories digging around and having fun in the mulm and in the plants, I think it gives it a chance for the baby fish to actually survive. So there's a chance that we'll actually get fish surviving, babies being born in this aquarium itself. And that's pretty cool. Also, the one spot where we do get a little bit of algae from time to time, it's just from when I leave the light on overnight or whatnot is when it'll appear. But it's always slime algae, because we've got all sorts of algae in this aquarium, and I've said it before in other videos, but the more kinds of algae you actually have, a lot of people think, okay, then the worse algae problem you're going to have. But if you have a really diverse baseline for all the different algae in your tank, a lot of times not a single one is going to take over. So even though we've got this green slimy stuff that you can roll up, wad up in one ball, we've also got the stuff that's growing up on the glass that looks like a dust or a powder. We've got the slimy stuff on the glass. Then we've also still got kind of little hairs here and there on some of the plants down here. We've actually got blackbeard algae and hair algae as well down in here, and fungi growing amidst the roots and the mulm. And all of this, if you look closely, may be somewhat unsightly. People feel that way about snails too from time to time. But this will all eventually settle. It's all still worked up because I just did all that cutting and trimming and moving of things. But it will all settle, and then it will all stratify into layers. And here you can see actually where the iron in the substrate has actually separated out. And that marks the spot where oxygen is no longer reaching. The substrate is right below that. So it's kind of a handy little tip. Things like that, things like your ram's horn snail shells, or if you have shrimp, how they look. All of this can tell you a lot. Even the color of your plants, which color the tips of, like this Limnophilia aromatica, the fact that it's a soft purple rather than a dark purple or a bright magenta, that tells us different things. Here's the male over there that's just cruising by of the Episto. And then we've also got a very rare plant, the silver powder Logonandrum eboli, that is still hanging on. It's got 4 leaves at the moment. And this Bulbidus hedulata, this fern that's growing up and out and about, it is absolutely massive now. When I started this tank 5 years ago, I started with the PCA big. Now it stretches the rhizome from here back to the corner, then it kind of snakes around and goes all the way over to about here. And at one point it was coming out into the front, but we actually broke that off and we put it in a tank in the back. But it's working its way to the front yet again. So now what we're going to do is we may top off a little bit of aqua soil with some sort of cap, but probably won't worry about the cap. I'll probably just slowly every few days put a cup or two of aqua soil in the front here, help kind of shake this mulmy stuff down into the substrate over time, and then also probably clean out the filter, just because that mulm is going to also be getting kicked up into the filter intake. If it got kicked up and settled, you know, as high as up here above the substrate, then there's a good chance that it was floating all over the water, and you know, it was murky for a little while. Plus the cories also kick up quite a bit of that light fluffy stuff. So if we want to cut down on the algae and other things, we'll have to cut down on that and just get it to settle down and stratify. Once it's done that, then the plants can utilize it, and any plants with roots that feed, like all of these ones in the front, they'll be able to utilize those nutrients that are just there waiting for the taking. So this pair has spawned together now once, this fella here, and the other female that is back over here, I was hoping would spawn with the gold one, this guy, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Also, you can see over here we've got more of the pencil fish hanging out, and you can see in their tail there's kind of like a crimson or a purple hue, but they're actually fencing and kind of I mean, almost like a sword fighting duel, or more of a wrestling, I guess, twisting around each other and wrestling, but also kind of this fencing thing they do. And I don't know if that one in particular is for dominance or spawning. Can't see what's going on very well, but it's always interesting. The other thing that's interesting is I moved the cories back in here. They'd been in another tank that had no water movement, whereas this tank actually has a good amount of outflow coming and moving around the tank. And because of that, they're a lot more active. That and probably a lower TDS. It simulates the wet season for them. And they'll probably be, yes, running up and down the front of the glass. And there's a good chance that they'll actually start laying eggs tonight, tomorrow. And if someone else doesn't eat them, like any given one of these fish, hopefully I can get some of the eggs off of there and hatch them out in another tank. So that is the rundown of this tank at the moment. Just thought I'd give you guys an update. There's still all the wood and so many different plant starts that have just been kind of stunted underneath layers and layers of stuff overgrowing while I'd traveled the last 6 months and spoke different places and went collecting different places. But now it's time to focus back on this tank. And once we get this tank in order, we'll be focusing on this tank with all of the blue dreams in it and the super tiny dwarf pencil fish, as well as there's some stir-by cories in here, and then there's also some very tiny, the smallest pleco in the world, the dwarf or pygmy snowball pleco, only 2 inches long or so. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about tackling this crazy growth of this persicaria and this red root floater, because sometimes what happens is it stagnates the water. It can cause either algae to start growing, or it can actually cause the lower part of the plant to start dying and thinning out, and it'll start putting out feelers. Sorry about the glare. To get nutrients, it'll start putting out roots, feelers that are rounded. And if they are the other kind that are flat or that have all these little spikes coming off of them, that's a taproot. That's trying to go down and in and lodge the plant, whereas these ones are just trying to get nutrients. Whereas the taproots or flat roots, so taproot has the spikes coming off of it, has the ability to put itself in like a tap of a keg or a well, and then the runner, the little fibers here, you can see they actually can hold on to glass in some cases. So they're wrapping around trying to find something to hold on to and then suck up nutrients for the types of plants that can float or be rooted. And thanks to these little stir-by tanks, they dig up a lot of those plants, and that's why they have to put those out. Plus the low nitrates with all these plants. I don't add too much fertilizer. And here, the last guy we'll mention tonight is the obviously the little dwarf red pencil fish. There's the male, but that other little guy, this Boraris, is a rasbora known as the clown spot, or the 3 spot, or the yellow spot, or the polka dot rasbora. But it is one of the smallest rasboras in the hobby. It has 3 black spots. 2 of them have yellow around them, kind of. And it's a very, very teeny fish. Full grown, that's it. Half an inch. But we'll talk about this tank next time. I just wanted to give you guys an update on the big community tanks and the trimming. And, you know, some folks were like, oh no, your angels have no room to move. And I know. I needed to keep up on trimming. And they actually do have even more room in that they can just push this around whenever they want. And they have, as you can see, because they were able to get through all of this, and all three of them were able to get back here earlier today. But right now, it's stopped the fighting, so I'm just going to let them be. No one's stuck. Everyone's got oxygen and everything. And nobody's stuck with a heater behind something. So it should all be good. Thanks for watching, guys. I will talk to you later.